As rain poured down, I stood in silence, watching movers haul luxurious furniture into my sister Sera's brand new mansion, a $2.8 million wedding gift from our parents, nestled in Boston's most elite neighborhood. My mother, oblivious to how soaked I was, beamed with pride. "Isn't it perfect for them?" she chirped. "Plenty of room for grandchildren." I forced a smile, clutching the congratulatory card I'd scraped change together to buy. "It's beautiful, Mom," I said, while mentally calculating my rent above the quaint bookstore where I worked just to stay afloat. Sera glided down the front steps, pristine in designer clothes, flashing her engagement ring like a lighthouse. "Lila, you finally made it. What do you think of our little starter home?" Starter home. My stomach twisted. "It's lovely," I said, biting back the truth. "A perfect gift." "Oh, don't be jealous, Maddie," she cooed, using the nickname I hated. "I'm sure you'll find someone special, too. Maybe one of those nice bookstore boys." Mom chimed in helpfully. "The Henderson boy is still single. He's an accountant now, very stable." I stood there, a 32-year-old with a master's in literature, working on my first novel, reduced in their eyes to a romantic failure with no ambition. "I should get going," I said. "My shift starts soon." "On a Saturday?" Mom frowned. "But we're having family dinner to celebrate Sera's house." "Some of us work weekends, Mom," I replied. Sera rolled her eyes. "Still so dramatic, Maddie. That's why you struggle. You always choose the hard way instead of accepting help." Help. Like the business school scholarship I'd declined. Like the job at Dad's firm I'd turned down. Every offer came wrapped in golden chains, designed to mold me into their image. "The bookstore is short-staffed," I said simply. "I need the hours." "At least take some leftovers." Mom sighed. "I hate to think of you eating alone in that tiny apartment." I didn't tell her that my little apartment was my haven, walls lined with books, shelves stacked with drafts of my novel, and freedom thick in the air. The next morning I stopped at Walt's corner store for my usual coffee. Walt, who had run the place since before I was born, greeted me with an odd sparkle in his eye. "Lila, did you check your ticket?" I blinked. "What ticket?" Then I remembered. The lottery ticket I'd bought on a whim 2 nights ago with my last $5. A silly indulgence. "Not yet," I said, pulling the crumpled slip from my wallet. "What were the winning numbers?" "Check the news, sweetheart." I pulled up the lottery site. The numbers popped up on the screen. 7, 13, 24, 31, 42, 53. I looked at my ticket. My hands trembled. "Walt," I whispered. "I think I won." His grin widened. "I know you did. I saw it live last night. You hit all 6. $97 million the world spun." I gripped the counter as my knees threatened to give way. Walt caught my arm and eased me into a chair. "Breathe, Lila. This changes everything. But you've got to be smart. Don't tell anyone yet." "Get a lawyer first, and for heaven's sake, sign that ticket," Walt urged, his voice steady with urgency. With trembling fingers, I signed the back, watching as he locked the winning lottery slip into his safe like it was a sacred relic. He handed me water, then called his daughter Jules, a sharp, respected financial attorney. "She'll meet you in an hour," he said. "She'll help you do this right." I nodded, my heart still thudding, my reality spinning. "Walt, what about my family?" I whispered. He met my gaze with a squeeze of my shoulder. "We'll deal with them when it's time. But right now, this is your moment. Don't let anyone take it." As I waited for Jules, my phone buzzed with a text from Sera. "Family brunch tomorrow to discuss wedding plans. Wear something nice for once, and try not to be late like always." I stared at it. the words dripping with condescension, a snapshot of 2 decades of being the family disappointment. Dreamer, writer, bookstore clerk. The afterthought. But now, I had 97 million reasons to rewrite the story. Sorry, can't make it. I have something more important to do. I texted back. And for the first time, it was true. 3 weeks later, I sat in Jules's sleek downtown office, signing the final documents to claim the money. Thanks to her, I had airtight privacy protections, layered trusts, and a new life blueprint. Once we submit these, she said, eyes scanning the final form, your name becomes public. Are you ready? I thought of everything I'd done already, leaving the bookstore with a generous parting gift for my boss, buying a modest home in a quiet neighborhood under a trust, and starting the foundation for a publishing company dedicated to underrepresented writers. I'm ready, I told her, and meant it. The next morning, my face was everywhere. Local writer wins record-breaking $97 million lottery jackpot. Bookstore employee becomes overnight millionaire. My phone blew up. Messages from old friends. High school bullies turned nostalgic, and relatives who hadn't sent a birthday card in years. But the ones I knew would come, came last. First, Sera. Oh my God, Maddie. Why didn't you tell us? Call me right now. Then Mom. Lila Elizabeth Bennett. How could you hide this from your family? We're coming over. What's your address? Finally, Dad. Your mother's beside herself. Call us. Now I turned the phone off and poured tea, settling into the quiet peace of my new home. Through my office window, sunlight poured over the garden where I planned to build a reading nook. It was the kind of morning that felt like healing. Then the doorbell rang. Through the security camera, Jules's idea. I saw them, my parents and Sera, polished and flustered on my porch. Sera looked like she was ready for a magazine cover, while Mom nervously tugged at her designer collar. I exhaled slowly, then opened the door. Lila! Mom cried, stepping forward. Why haven't you called us back? How could you afford this place? The lottery money isn't even released yet. Hello, Mother, I said calmly. Would you like to come in? They shuffled into the living room, eyes darting across the curated bookshelves, the subtle elegance of a home clearly not bought on impulse. Sera trailed a manicured finger across a shelf. Well, she sniffed, I guess you can finally afford to move to a better neighborhood. There's a darling colonial near me. Only $4 million. I'm happy here, I said, cutting through the shallow elegance of my mother's carefully practiced concern. But thank you for your worry. She leaned forward, voice sweet and sharp all at once. Maddie, darling, you have to understand. This kind of money is life-altering. You'll need real guidance. Your father knows excellent wealth managers. I met her gaze evenly. I already have a team, and it's Lila, not Maddie. Sera's sigh was sharp. Don't be difficult. We're trying to help. God knows you've never been good with money. Like that $10,000 I loaned you for your startup, I asked calmly. The one you never repaid? Her cheeks flushed. That was different. I needed it. What you needed, I said, rising from my chair, was to take responsibility, something none of you have ever expected from her. My father finally stirred, his voice gruff. Now see here, we've always supported you both equally. I laughed, genuinely, bitterly. Equally? You bought Sera a mansion for her wedding, paid for her MBA, her first car, her extravagant wedding. What did I get for graduation? A lecture on practicality. We worried about you, my mother said, eyes brimming. Your choices were so impractical. No, I said. You just wanted me to be Sera, the perfect daughter, the safe one. But it was my so-called impractical path, my bookstore job, that led me to that winning ticket. And now, I turned to Sera. Now, you're trying to fold me back into your world, invest the money, mold me, polish me up for the right social circles. We can help you finally have a real life, Sera said with faux generosity. No, I said simply. The silence that followed was deafening. What do you mean, no? Dad demanded. I crossed the room and pulled out 3 envelopes from my desk. Sera, this is a cashier's check. $10,000. Repaying that loan you conveniently forgot. I handed her the first envelope. Mom, Dad, here's $15,000. Every dime you've ever spent on me. I've kept records. I placed the second envelope on the coffee table. They stared, stunned, but I wasn't finished. The third contains proof that I've already started my own publishing company, a charitable foundation for literacy, and set up investments with one of the best financial firms in the country. I didn't need your guidance then, and I don't now. My mother whispered, But we're family. Yes, I said. And family should lift each other up, support dreams, celebrate differences, not try to erase them. I opened the front door. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with my foundation's board. We're funding libraries in underserved communities. My father stood rigid, face pale. You're making a mistake. You need us. I smiled, feeling freer than I had in years. No, Dad. You need me. That's why you're here. Sera rose, rage simmering beneath her polished veneer. You think you're better than us now? Over some lucky numbers? I met her gaze. No, Sera. I always was. You just never noticed. As they turned to leave, my mother hesitated at the door, tears in her eyes. Lila, please. We made mistakes. We see it now. Can't we start again? I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time I saw how small they all were, caged in their narrow definitions of worth. Maybe someday, I said gently, but not today. I closed the door, silencing the echo of their regret. Back in my office, I sat at my desk beside the manuscript of my novel, a story about a girl finding her voice in a world desperate to mute her. It was time to write the next chapter. 6 months later, at the launch party for Bennett Publishing House, I stood beneath soft lights and shelves filled with debut books, surrounded by voices that had once been overlooked, just like mine. We turned an old warehouse into something breathtaking, a sanctuary of books, art, and imagination where possibility hung in the air like magic. The launch event for Bennett Publishing House buzzed with energy as local authors mingled with agents, journalists, and children from our literacy program who proudly showed off their stories. Walt stood beside me, beaming like a proud father. Look what you've built, Lila, and not a penny wasted on showing off. He was right. I could have bought a gleaming office tower downtown, but instead I poured my winnings into restoring history, into creating a home for voices like mine, once overlooked, now heard. My money hadn't gone to vanity, but to purpose, education programs, debut authors, and a future worth believing in. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Sera. Saw your company in the business journal. Must be nice having everything handed to you. BTW. Theo lost his job. We could use some family support. I deleted it without hesitation. Over the past few months, the messages had cycled. Guilt, manipulation, false warmth, and finally, entitlement. Apparently, Sera's mansion was too small now. Our parents' country club dues were overdue. Theo's failed investments begged rescuing. I'd ignored every plea. Ms. Bennett? A soft voice tugged me back. A young girl from our literacy program stood by my side, notebook in hand. Will you read my story? Of course, Mia, I said, kneeling to her level. What's it about? A girl who finds a magic pen, she said shyly. Everything she writes comes true, but she has to figure out what's really important to write about. I smiled, struck by the quiet wisdom of children. Then a shadow fell over us. I looked up, and there was my mother. Her tailored coat looked out of place here, as did the unease on her face. She'd lost some of that high society sheen. Life had been unraveling for them lately. Dad's firm had lost key clients. Sera's picture-perfect marriage was splintering. Their friends, the ones who'd once sneered at my impracticality, were now drifting away. Mom, this is a private event, I said. I know, she replied, eyes darting toward Mia. I had to talk to you. Alone? Mia, why don't you show your story to Nora, our children's book editor? I said. Once Mia was gone, I turned to my mother. What is it? Your father's firm is failing. Sera's house is being foreclosed. Everything's falling apart. And you're here, playing with children's stories? My temper sparked. Playing? I gestured around us. Look again. Those kids? They're learning to love reading. Those writers? They're seeing their names in print for the first time. This is real, Mom. This matters. You never respected my path, even now. You're not here because you care. You're here because you need money. She flinched. We're still your family. I walked her to the wall of success stories. Photos of kids beaming with books in hand, authors celebrating first contracts, snapshots of community change. Family celebrates your wins. Family cheers when you shine. When was the last time you asked what I wanted in life? What made me happy? I don't know. Exactly, I said. The lottery didn't change me. It just freed me from chasing approval I was never going to get. Her eyes welled with tears. We were wrong. I see that now. But can't you forgive us? I sighed, softer now. Forgiveness isn't the issue. I forgave you months ago. That's why I'm not angry anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean letting people keep hurting you. Then, what do you want from us? She asked. I met her gaze. Nothing. I met their desperation with calm resolve. That's the point, I said, my voice steady. I don't need anything from you anymore. And until you want a relationship with me that isn't about money, image, or your version of success, there's nothing left for us to discuss. A stir at the front doors broke the moment. Sera, flanked by Dad and Theo, had arrived like a last-ditch cavalry. Seriously? I muttered. You all came to ambush me at my own company's launch? Sera's carefully painted facade had crumbled. Mascara streaked her cheeks as she sobbed. We're desperate, Maddie. Theo lost everything in that investment scheme. The bank is foreclosing. And Dad's company, it's falling apart. Please, you have to help us. The room fell into hushed discomfort as guests pretended not to watch the unraveling. I stared at the people who had once dismissed me. Dad, shrunken and gray. Sera, designer clothes worn thin. Mom, caught between pride and silent pleading. No, I said simply, the words slicing through the tension. No? Dad echoed, voice cracking under the weight of his fall. I'll offer you something else instead, I replied. I pulled up my phone and tapped through a few saved files. Dad, Carter Financial Services is hiring senior advisors. They're willing to interview you. No promises, but it's a real opportunity. I flipped to the next image. Sera, the local arts center is searching for a fundraising coordinator. You've always had the social skills for events. You just never use them for anything real. And Theo? I looked him squarely in the eye. A friend of mine owns a construction company. They need project managers. Real work. Fair pay. Sera's jaw dropped. You want us to work for other people? I want you to work, like I did, to discover who you are when no one is handing you shortcuts or applause. Dad stiffened. And if we say no? Then you'll figure it out. But you won't get a dime from me to prop up the fantasy that's been suffocating all of us for years. Silence hung between us, thick but honest. Then, unexpectedly, Mom spoke. The Art Center. Do they really think Sera could be good at fundraising? Yes, I said. Because when she's actually trying, not posing, she's got talent, real talent. Sera sniffled, rubbing her eyes. I don't even know how to be anything else. Yes, you do, I said gently, taking her hand. The first time in months. You're smart and stubborn. Use that for something that matters. Dad cleared his throat. That interview, Carter Financial. What time? 10 tomorrow, I replied. Don't wear the Rolex. Show them your experience, not your ego. One by one, they nodded. Not in gratitude, but in quiet acceptance. When they turned to leave, Mom paused at the doorway. Your company, it's really something, Lila. I'm sorry we never saw it. I met her gaze. Maybe someday you'll see me too. After they disappeared into the night, Walt appeared beside me, eyes kind. You okay, kiddo? I looked around at the renovated warehouse, at the shelves brimming with stories, at lives shifting in quiet, powerful ways. You know what, Walt? I said. I really am. Just then, Mia sprinted back, waving her notebook like a trophy. Ms. Bennett, Nora said maybe my story could be a real book. I bent down, heart full. Want to know a secret, Mia? Every real book starts with someone brave enough to tell their story, just like you. That night, curled up in my garden nook with a steaming mug of tea and the draft of my novel in my lap, my phone buzzed. A message from Sera. I have an interview at the Art Center tomorrow. Any advice? I smiled and typed back. Be yourself. Your real self. Winning the lottery gave me money. But more than that, it gave me the power to reclaim my life on my terms. The power to help others without losing myself. And in the end, that kind of wealth, the kind that lets you be exactly who you're meant to be, is the rarest kind of fortune there is.